and thanks so much for tuning in to Good News on Entertainment. I'm your host, Carly Boyette. We have a great show for you tonight. We first want to highlight a film that is having its debut in theaters this weekend. It's called Southern Gospel. It's the story of a man overcoming brokenness and never surrendering the dream on his journey to find the gospel, hence the name Southern Gospel. The film is produced, written, and directed by a man named Jeffrey A. Smith. He is also a pastor of a large church in St. Cloud, Florida. In fact, the film is based on the true story of his own father and how his journey led him to start City of Life Church. I had a chance to sit down with Jeffrey and hear more about what led to this film and why he hopes it will be a message of encouragement for all who watch. But first, let's take a closer look at Southern Gospel.
It's getting hot, real hot.
You got a gift, son. It's in your blood.
My dad always told me that nothing can distance you from God's love. And boy, I tried. You ever felt like you know the man you want to be, but you're just not strong enough? Every day.
Preacher boy.
Just trying to start over, you know? You're beautiful, inside and out. And I was certain I lost a chance to love someone as special as you. A year ago, I was high on cocaine. I know we don't talk about this kind of stuff in church, but I don't know why.
I've been watching you since your so-called conversion. Rock and roll, it's an infection.
You're gonna try and tell me you've never made one mistake.
Not a one! You're finished.
Our life was stolen from us.
Look, I'm fighting for our dream.
I got lost somewhere along the way, but you kept loving me.
A lost cause now is found. Never give up on the dream that God has given you. All because of your love.
All right, so excited now to be joined, as you just saw the trailer there, the writer, producer, and director of this film, Southern Gospel, which is hitting theaters March 10th. Truly an honor to get a chance to get some time with you today, hear more about the story about making this film, and really excited to pick your brain a little bit. How are you?
I'm great, Carly. It's great to be with you here today. Thank you for having me. It's been so nice just to chat with you and talk with you. You've done some really cool stuff over the last couple of years, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been fun just chatting with you already, so this can be good.
It is going to be good. Congratulations on this film. And we were chatting before we got started. I think there's a real need and a hunger for these types of films, certainly faith-based films, but not all of the faith-based films are going to look and sound alike. We need different versions of storytelling as well. So let's dive in. And what's the best way? This is a very personal story for you. So kind of set the stage a little bit on what people can expect when they see this.
Well, I think that people could expect to see a really heartfelt, honest story. This is a story that was inspired by my family. So my family, they were pastors and grew up in an organization. And just my dad was had an event that happened to him when he was very young that made him very bitter toward church. And he got blamed for something that he didn't do and felt very unjustified in that situation. So it kind of led him down a road of joining a rock and roll band and not really having anything to do with church, God, anything like that for many years. And it was a tragic event that sort of pushed him back toward the dream that he had as a child of being a preacher like his father. So I think Southern Gospel is just the most honest take that I can have on how challenging it is. We see about 150,000 churches in America. And when we drive by these churches every day, sometimes we don't really think, what's the story behind that one? That's been there forever. Who started that? How did it get started? So this is kind of a take on some of the pain, the trials, the difficulty, the overcoming. My mom's character deals with a lot of issues of abuse that she experienced from her father growing up. And those things are triggered by a really difficult event later in their relationship, and my dad doesn't feel prepared to know, even didn't know it existed, but didn't know how to deal with it. So it's really just a very raw, honest story. There's a lot of beauty, a lot of hope, a lot of redemption, a lot of great music in this film. My background is in music, so there's like 16 songs in the film, and we work with some of the greatest musicians. Dan Tominski, who's been, I think he has 14 Grammys. He did the voice for George Clooney in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, that song Man of Constant Sorrow that got nominated for Oscar and all that stuff. Dan sang that, and he's in our movie. He sings a song in the movie on camera and sings another song in the movie. Then Rhonda Vincent, I think, who has like 7 nominations and 1 Grammy Award. Her version of I'll Fly Away is in the movie. Her daughter has a song in the film. So the music is just incredible in the film. So it'd be kind of like a Walk the Line meets The Apostle type feeling for a movie, if you're wondering. What
I love
it.
it. That's the perfect description. Oh, so much stuff I want to get in there too. My first thought was, I love that you're taking an honest look, because I do think there's so many people that relate to when churches and people in the faith let them down.
Right.
And I think it's something we as church and followers of Christ need to start addressing and talking about, I think, a little bit more, because so many people, like you said, have been turned away from the church because of that.
I believe so. I think in the trailer there's a question where, he asks the character of T.L. Whitmore, you've told me you've never made one mistake in 30 years. And the guy stands up and says, not one. And I think that mentality of that I'm perfect, or I don't do anything wrong, or even, the kind of the presentation from a lot of Christians who are afraid to admit that they're just as flawed, sometimes even more flawed than anyone else. That presentation doesn't connect well with a culture that's really desiring a lot of authenticity. I personally think that when you look at Jesus, you see someone who's the most authentic person that you could ever possibly meet. Reconnecting with Peter on the beach after Peter betrays him, and he cooks Peter breakfast without saying anything about, oh, by the way, you're one of the 3 closest people to me, and you just did the worst thing that you could ever do. So how do you respond to that? I'm going to cook you your favorite meal. So I think when you talk about authenticity, we've got some history there that if we're supposed to be Christ followers, we should be authentic people that are willing to show who we actually are. We don't have to be afraid of mistakes that we've made or how hard life can be, or try to paint a different picture of it. We can talk about redemption and how that's part of our story. I mean, Paul even talks about, he says, my weaknesses are the actual things that make me strong. And so I think that the trying to present strength all the time can really distance people from the outside that are looking at our story. But as a matter of fact, I'll just be honest, in the early iterations of my script, this is my dad who was I was modeling this character after. A lot of people didn't like his character. They're like, oh, he's too, perfect. And I'm thinking, well, this is my dad. What do I do about that? And so I would go back to Dad. I'd be like, Dad, can I make it a little more? He's like, son, you're making me an angel. He's like, tell it like it is. And it was only, when I started exploring with telling that true side of who he was, that people started rooting for him. So yeah, we really tried to tell a very honest story of failure, pain, hope, redemption.
Talk about how this then, because you're now a pastor of your own church, and this kind of led not only this story that we're going to see in Southern Gospel, which I do want to go back to the music though, but I do want you to touch on for people just learning about you and your story, what you're doing today, because it's pretty impressive how God is using you.
Yeah, I was, thank you. I was a recording artist for almost 30 years. I was on Myrrh Records in 1991. I was in one of the first Christian teen bands called Area Code. Then I had a solo album with Word, made music for a long time. Then I started working with my parents and became an associate youth pastor. And I think like 13 or 14 years ago, my wife and I took over as the senior pastors at our church, and always have done productions and films and short films and plays and things like that to connect with people. And one of the ones that I did became such an elevated kind of production with professional cameras and all those things that really just kind of opened the door for us to start telling different kinds of stories. And my church has been a part of this the whole time. So this is something that we do together, and my whole church family at City of Life has been a big part of the process. So I love doing all of that stuff.
So how do you then get connected? I mean, I guess because of your connections through the music industry, and then kind of walk me through. You have some big names that people I think are gonna, when they see this film, recognize them. One of the actors is in Outer Banks, one of the biggest hit shows
Yeah.
on Netflix.
Gary Weeks. Yeah.
Emma Myers in the hit show Wednesday. So you've
Yeah.
had a lot of people sign on to this project. How was that?
Well, one of the ways that happened is we had a great, budget for the movie, and some people believed in the film to give us a budget, and we just hired the best, Hollywood casting directors that are out there, and we almost everyone that you could think of that's been in a big movie since Southern Gospel, which was filmed in 2020, tried out for Southern Gospel, and we saw all of their audition tapes. We were looking for very specific people in our two leads, in Max and Caitlin, that were singers. Great singers that could also convey the dramatic aspects of what we wanted. And so that we saw everyone. So we had just the best in the business at almost every position you could imagine in the film. So the quality of what we did was very important to us to tell the story in an excellent way.
Now, when I hear the term Southern Gospel, as the title of the film, I think of Southern Gospel music. So
No, the term is definitely a loaded term for people that, my parents were evangelists growing up in the 70s and 80s, and I was in over 300 churches a year singing Southern Gospel music with my family. I mean, like more traditional Happy Goodman, stuff like that, traditional Southern Gospel, Kingsman. That was kind of the foundation for the music that we did in this movie. And I think it's a little bit of a play on words. You'll hear very traditional Southern Gospel at certain points with real bluegrassy versions of I'll Fly Away, things like that. But I think it's really more of a term for that the character grows up in the South, in Birmingham. The movie is set in Birmingham, and it's kind of a, the truth will set you free kind of story. So it is a little tongue in cheek, the title. It's not like going to Gaither Homecoming or something.
Right. And
it's not what it's about. Yeah. It's a little nod to that for sure. We definitely respect that genre.
What's next for you? I'd imagine this has got to have inspired you. I can't imagine being a writer and stopping here. I'd imagine this is just encouraging the dream for you.
Well, it is definitely encouraging. I think this is my first feature that I've ever done, and I loved the process. I shot it during COVID, and I've heard that's the hardest. Like that, I started out with the hardest thing you could ever imagine. So the other ones will be, comparatively easier. But I am looking forward to making more films. But honestly, I think, Carly, that I just want to make an impact in whatever arena I'm in. If I'm just doing my job at church, connecting with people, if I'm at Walmart, on an errand or something, or making a film or making a song, I just want to be as encouraging to people as possible, do the best that I can to make a difference. I know that sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but
that's where I am. It's like,
it
God,
really is.
I don't need to know the will 10 years from now. Just
I
today,
really mean that. I do want to do other films, but I don't really necessarily put that at a higher premium than what I'm doing today here at my house. I got a day with my family here. So I just want to make the best impact that I can make, whatever I'm doing.
Whatever is placed in front of you today. I love
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
That's authentic. And I think we can appreciate that. Well, Jeffrey A. Smith, again, truly a pleasure to sit down with you today. Congratulations. We wish you all the best on the release of this movie. And it's going to be exciting to see where it goes from here.
All because of your love.
Again, the movie is in theaters now, and for more information on where you can find it playing and how to get tickets, go to southerngospel.film. Now, from the big screen to a stage possibly near you. True Girl is an organization that brings mothers and daughters closer to each other and closer to Jesus in a fun, unique, and entertaining way. True Girl is a community and live event that is traveling the country right now. And as a mom of a tween girl myself, I know how much this is needed.
Created by best-selling author Dana Gresh, the True Girl Pajama Party Tour is a live stage event that helps moms teach their tween daughters that there is only one source of truth, and it's not her friends, boys, or social media. It's Jesus. Through live worship, Deep Bible teaching, a fashion show, and more. True Girl cuts through the lies and reinforces what every girl needs to know, that she is fearfully and wonderfully made. You'll share the truth she needs to know in a night she'll always remember. The True Girl Pajama Party Tour, the most fun you'll ever have digging into God's Word together.
All right. As a mom of a tween girl myself, I am so excited to talk with Dana Gresh, the founder of True Girl, which in my opinion is doing amazing things for this age group that I'm just now finding out. I kind of already knew, but is a hard age group to mentor and to get to know, and certainly help them find their identity in Christ, which I just absolutely love. Such a pleasure to get a chance to sit down with you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. This is the funnest thing to talk about, is how we can bring tween girls closer to Jesus. I love it.
Well, and you've been at this now, I believe, for almost 20 years, but there's still so many, I feel like, that don't know about it. And maybe it's because when you finally get to be at a place where you're a mom of a tween and you're going, okay, I need some help on how to to navigate all of this. Do you find that a lot?
Oh, we all need help. And there's research that says that the most stressful time for parenting is the tween years. It's second only to those early years, those first years when babies aren't sleeping through the night and when you're going through the terrible twos and all of that kind of thing. Second only to that is these tween years, because moms are going, oh, wow, there are pressures here on my daughter that weren't on me when I was this age. And I really am not happy about it. Don't know what to do about it. And I'm starting to feel fearful. Well, we're going to take away that fear. And we're going to put mom in control of planting truth in their daughter's lives. We can't control whether or not their daughter receives that truth, but we can equip moms to plant that truth. And that's what we do at True Girl. We like to think of ourselves as a toolbox for moms that want to grow closer to their daughters as they grow closer together to Jesus.
So you have the tour that goes to different churches and things. There's podcasts. Kind of explain the big overall kind of theme and where people can find these resources.
Well, here's what you need to know is that what my research led me to when I was at that place of fear, when I was like, I didn't know my daughter was going to be pressured to wear that when she was in 5th grade. I didn't know my daughter was going to be having friends that listened to that song when she was in 6th grade. All of that pressure was happening. I was like, how do I reduce the risk of my daughter? Because I was reading the stuff and it was saying that giving into that pressure, from body and beauty products to the music lyrics that my daughter listens to, the TV shows she watched, that it can put her on a conveyor belt to an early physical debut, an early sexual debut, body image issues, and eating disorders. And I was like, I'm not signing up for that. That's not going to be my daughter. So the world's standard for how we reduce that risk is mother-daughter connectedness, father-daughter connectedness, parent-child connectedness. So when we're connected to our children, when we're engaged with them, when we're having fun with them and we're learning with them, beside them, that eliminates the risk and reduces the risk of all the things our mama's heart fears. Well, guess what? That's biblical. Deuteronomy 6 says, hey, when you sit with them, when you stand with them, when you walk with them, teach them my ways. And that sounds like connectedness to me. It sounds like a whole lot of togetherness. So here's what you need to know about True Girl. True Girl is my effort to create those mother-daughter connection experiences. So from the tour event, the True Girl Pajama Party Tour is touring right now all throughout the country. And that isn't just a performance with my worship team, amazing young worship team, teachers, and mother-daughter games, stage experiences. Every 30 minutes or so, we turn to the audience and say, okay, turn to your mom, turn to your daughter, and talk about this. We're creating the connection. And what we're doing is reminding moms how much it matters, because, we get so busy. We get so busy that we forget to slow down, really look our kids in the eyes, and be connected.
Well, and I feel like sometimes, you bring your past to it. And if you weren't maybe exposed to that when you were a kid with your mom,
so good.
It's generational, and not that it's, anybody's fault or that they set out to do that, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Well, and let's go back a long time in generations to Adam and Eve when, God created us as social beings He is a social being. We are created in his image, so we are social beings. What is the first thing that happens when sin enters in the world? Satan disconnects us from each other. Adam and Eve are hiding from God. I think they're hiding from each other because the fig leaves, if they're hiding in the bushes from God, why do they need the fig leaves? Well, they're hiding from each other too. And that distance is from the enemy of our souls. And God, his word, his salvation, his redemption plan, everything is to bring us back together. And as moms and daughters, that's one of the reasons why parent-child connectedness reduces the risk of sin and all the things our hearts fear, because we're cooperating with God's redemption plan when we do that. We are acting as the social beings that God created us to be. So when your daughter brings home that recipe from Science Project to make, like, I don't know, Play-Doh out of glue, like, that is a connection opportunity. Like having dinner together, families who have dinner together 5 times a week or more, and that could be dinner, breakfast, whatever your schedule works out for you. They tend to have the kids that are performing well academically, that are engaged in healthy relationships, not toxic relationships. They're the ones that are performing in social settings well, and they're not doing the things that we consider really bad for them. So slow down, have dinner, have breakfast, whatever it is, but connect to your kids. It's biblical.
Talk about, my first kind of thought is if you've been seeing kind of these trends over the last 20 years, I'm a mom who's absolutely terrified of social media. And I think so many of our kids now are starting so much younger. And when you talk about image, body image, there's been so much on the news lately about the algorithms and what they do and how quickly it can escalate from what they're watching and what they're putting into our brains. Have you kind of been studying that a little bit? And I'd imagine that's got to weigh heavy on your heart.
Well, so my best-selling book is called Lies Girls Believe and the Truth That Sets Them Free. And there's a mom's guide to lies girls believe and the truth that sets them free. We studied 1,500 tween girls, and we wanted to know what are the lies that the enemy's planting in your heart so that we can know as moms what truth to plant in them to counteract those lies. And we really did talk about this social media thing. It's a little controversial because moms were like, well, under the age of 12, a girl's not supposed to be on social media. And that is true. By law, there's an act in a law of the land that says you can't give your email address or personal information out online if you're under the age of 13, which means that it is essentially illegal for a child under the age of 13 to be on any social media. The reason for that is because developmentally their brains can't handle it. They're not ready for it. It's a very high risk. But our research of 1,500 church-going tween girls, they are a lot of times in their 10th, 11th, 12th years on social media or really getting pressure to be on social media. And so does it matter? Should we be concerned about it? Well, here's what's devastating. The anxiety and the depression among this age group, 8 to 12-year-olds, even just going to the ER for depression and anxiety related things is up so high. One sociologist said that the average girl between the ages of 8 and 12 scores as high on an anxiety scale today as a child who in the 1950s would have been given inpatient treatment for anxiety and depression. But we're just saying, oh, it's pretty normal. So keep going, keep going, keep going.
Well, and because we always say, oh, well, the next generation, we always think that it's getting worse. But I really do think it is getting it's
worse. It's much worse. And here's the thing. You can trace that, we call it hockey stick growth. When something's really, obviously there was a catalyst that created a change in growth. So, we've always seen a slow slope of growth of anxiety and depression in girls, right? But suddenly, starting in about 2007, we see this hockey stick growth where it kind of starts to go straight up. And what happened in 2007, 2008?
Well, it's got to be social,
we Facebook and MySpace, those things came onto the scene, and smartphones came onto the scene. They have contributed to the emotional unhealth of our daughters. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't use it. It just means they need it to be introduced in the right way, with the right restrictions, with the right self-control. And I really think even at the age of 13, a lot of them aren't ready yet. We know they're ready when they're starting to demonstrate discipline in doing their chores and their academic stuff and engaging in family first. We know they're ready when they're coming to mom and dad and saying, hey, this friend told me this thing and I don't think that's right. So can you talk to me about how to talk to them? Like those kinds of things are signs and symbols that they're ready to be on social media. You would never drop your kid off at Times Square and be like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, I'll be back tomorrow. You'll be fine. That's kind of what we're doing when we just let them loose in social media. We haven't given them the skills. Maybe when they're 21, they'll be old enough to be dropped off.
Why? There's still plenty of adults that I don't know if are ready either. It's a whole nother conversation. What is your message of hope, though, before we kind of wrap it up here? And again, I just, you're onto something that I think is so needed because it is a difficult age, I think, to navigate and to help find resources for. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Easy. The words of Jesus in John 8:31 and 32. If you're truly my disciples, you'll abide in my word and you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. I've had a front row seat for 20 years to see that unfold in the lives of 8 to 12-year-old girls as we get them involved in mom-daughter conversations centered around the word, our daily devos through our subscription program, our online Bible studies, even our podcast, 10-minute drive time truth for mom-daughters, the True Girl podcast. As they experience that, they write to us and they tell us what I've started to call freedom stories because they're like, I was anxious. I was depressed. I was boy crazy. I was feeling like I didn't have any friends. And then I heard this Bible verse on the True Girl podcast. And then they start to tell us how Jesus has set them free. We don't have to be fearful moms because we have Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And when we abide in the word of God, the Bible, we get to know him and he sets our hearts free.
Yes. How can people find out about, again, all the different resources? You mentioned this tour that's going on right now all across the country. What's the best place that people can find out more and get signed up?
Yeah, mytruegirl.com. You get tickets to the live events. We'll be in 30 cities in the next couple of months. You can find the free online podcast. You can access blogs that encourage you as a mom. The community is there, 100,000 moms strong, just waiting to walk beside you as you get closer to your daughter and you both grow closer to Jesus.
Well, God bless. Thank you. Thank you for helping us moms fight this battle of where the enemy, I think, wants to get in, seek, and destroy. And we have to claim that we're not going to let him. And I would imagine the hope is too, once we help our daughters do this, maybe their daughters tell their friends.
Exactly. That's the hope, that we pass it on. We have pass on the freedom and hope of Jesus Christ.
Good stuff right there. For more info and where they are traveling, head to mytruegirl.com. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Good News on Entertainment on your Christian Television Network. Again, I'm Carly Boyette, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.